Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel, guys. So what I have for you guys today is going to be another episode of the Championship Roundup. So this weekend in the Championship, we had some mental scorelines going on, and we had some absolute wonder goals scored, and it was just a bizarre weekend overall in the Championship. So as always, guys, I would love to hear your guys' opinions on what you thought of your team's performance this weekend in the Championship. Make sure you leave a comment in the comments down below as to what you thought of all this week's action, because we had some mental games this week. So if you've not seen this series before, basically what we do, we round up each game that's taken place over the course of the weekend in the Championship. I give my little bit of analysis on what I thought of each game, but what I'm really interested to know is what you guys have to say. I'd also love to know from you guys as well, what did you think was the result of the weekend, and what did you think was the goal of the weekend? We had, like I said, some mental scorelines for contenders for the result of the weekend this time, and we had some absolute peaches of goals as well. So just before we do get into any of the games, guys, I will include your guys' comments on screen now. So if any of you guys did successfully manage to predict any of the scorelines this weekend, I will include your comment on screen now. So fair play to everyone who correctly got a scoreline correct this week. I managed to get one of mine correct this week. That was the Cardiff against QPR game. I said that one would finish 2-1 to Cardiff, and in the end it did just that. So not too bad going from me getting one right. Not the best, not the worst. Let's get into some action. So our first game we have to talk over is the one taking place on Friday night, the first of the Friday kickoffs between Bristol City and Aston Villa. This was actually quite a lively affair, I think it's fair to say. At half time it was 0-0, but in terms of the first half, I'd say that Bristol City just about edged it. In terms of some of the chances they were creating, they were a slight bit unfortunate not to go in at half time at 1-0 up. They just couldn't seem to finish some of the chances they were creating, and then in the second half they came out with a similar sort of intensity actually, and it did take a bit of luck to get their first goal. It was Jamie Patterson who slotted in to the back of the net. It was a bit of a scrappy goal. It took them a couple of attempts, but they did finally manage to get it in. After they went 1-0 up though, they couldn't really seem to capitalise on it, and that's when Aston Villa really started to get back into the game, and it only took them 4 minutes actually until Josh Onomah scored an absolute worldie of a goal to go into the back of the net. It did take quite a big deflection on its way, but even so, it was a peach to get Villa back in the game, and in the end it finished 1-1. It was probably the fair result. And then for our next fixture we had the second game taking place on Friday night between Hull and Bolton, and in the end Hull managed to go ahead and grab the 4-0 victory in the end. And was this deserved? Yeah, I don't think any Bolton fans can really have any issues with this scoreline really. Hull more than deserved it and were very impressive actually going forward. You could tell that it was probably going to be a long evening for Bolton when Hull took the lead on just 13 minutes, and then after 19 minutes they managed to go 2-0 up. So going forward, Hull City did look excellent in this game. I think it's fair to say Grosicki at Championship level will cause a lot of teams damage this season. I mean, no doubt about that. I think he will be an excellent player for them. In terms of Bolton, I think they will struggle this year. I think that's fair to say at this point in time of the season. From what I've shown from their performances so far, I've not been overly convinced they'll have enough to stay up this season, and albeit they were going up against a tough Hull City side, but even so, I felt like to get something from this game they had to keep it tight at the back early doors in this one, and they couldn't seem to do that as they were already 3-0 down by half time. Then into our next fixture we're into the Saturday kickoffs now, and our first one to talk over was a tremendous victory for Barnsley as they managed to dispatch Sunderland by 3-0. Sunderland in this one were far off the pace. Everything wasn't really clicking for them from their defence to midfield to attack. No one was on their game for Sunderland in this one here today. Their goalkeeper as well I thought was quite questionable for a couple of the goals, but that's not taking anything away from Barnsley in this one. They were absolutely fantastic. Going forward, I think this is what Barnsley will be like at home this season. I think they will cause quite a few teams problems this season actually at home, and I think it will be their home form which will be crucial to them having a good season this year. Overall, it just was an excellent performance from Barnsley, and they more than deserved the 3 points and the 3-0 victory in the end, and that is now 2 out of 2 in terms of home victories for Barnsley, so they could be turning Oakwell into a bit of a fortress this year. Then into our next fixture we then had Birmingham who came up against Reading. Now for my prediction for this match, I did predict a 2-0 for this one, but I did predict it in favour of the home side, and in the end that wasn't the case. So at half time in this one it was 0-0. A bit nip and tug between the two teams at half time. I'd say that Reading probably did just about edge the first half in terms of some of the chances they had, and in the second half, I mean, it took until the 60th minute for Reading to take the lead, but but they missed some really big chances in the lead up to that. I think it was Barrow who missed an absolute sitter in the second half, but it was Bodvarsson who managed to get on the score sheet for this one to take the lead for Reading, and after that they did then capitalise on it with Evans wrapping up the scoreline. And for this one, overall, I did think Birmingham were quite far off the pace actually. Quite disappointing really, considering they were the home side and Reading were coming off the back of that disappointing performance to Preston, and considering Reading were missing Swift as well, one of their key players. This was a big opportunity for Birmingham to get something from it, but in the end they didn't do it, and it was an impressive comeback from Reading. Then for our next fixture we then had Brentford, who came up against Wolves, and I've got to say, this scoreline between these two sides, it did surprise me when I saw this scoreline, as both of them going forward this season I think have already shown what they're capable of. Brentford, I suppose, haven't scored the most amount of goals this season, but in every game they've featured in so far, they have created a lot of chances, and it was actually a similar case in this game, you know. Don't let the 0-0 scoreline, you know, delude you that it was a boring match. It wasn't anything of the sort. Both sides were creating pretty good chances in this game, but neither of them could really get that final cutting quality to go ahead and get it over the line. And overall, the 0-0, it probably was a fair result in the end actually. They are two sides which like to play good football, good attacking football, so it was a surprise to me when it did end 0-0, but it was just that final product from each team which just couldn't get them over the line. So in the end, if I had to tip one side who could have won it, I'd probably just edge towards Brentford with some of the chances they had, but overall 0-0 was probably fair. For our next fixture we then had Burton Albion, who came up against Sheffield Wednesday. So a game between two different sides. I mean, the budgets that these two sides have had over the last like 3 or 4 years is the complete opposite, I think that's fair to say, but Burton Albion were more than capable of holding their own in this one, as it did finish as a 1-1 draw. And in this game it was Gary Hooper who gave Sheffield Wednesday the lead after 36 minutes in the first half, and it was a tremendous finish from him. I don't know how he got it into the back of the net. It was sort of like a swivel on his back heel that he just looped around the keeper. It was a terrific finish. If you've not seen that goal, I'd definitely recommend you go ahead and check it out. But after Sheffield Wednesday did get that first goal, they seemed to have the majority of possession. However, they couldn't seem to get that second goal to be that reassurance and to get the 3 points for them, which was a bit of a disappointment for Sheffield Wednesday. I feel like this has been a bit of a flow for quite a few of the games they've had so far this season. Burton Albion didn't make it easy for them, but they have struggled with killing sides off this season, which come the end of the season, that could be a bit of a downfall for them. But fair play to Burton Albion. They get back into the game in the second half with a goal from Joe Mason. A nice strike from him to get them back on level terms, and Burton are actually in a decent bit of form recently, 3 unbeaten for them now. And then for our next fixture we then go to Cardiff, who came up against QPR, and in this one it was Cardiff who have retained their 100% record with a 2-1 victory over QPR. Now QPR got off to a pretty good start in this one actually. It was Matt Smith who gave QPR the lead after just 15 minutes in this one. You know, he's always going to be a bit of a danger, you know, with his height and everything like that, but QPR, they didn't do themselves any favours. They let Cardiff back into this game after a very sloppy back pass from Nathan Manua, allowed Junior Hoylett in on goal, and he managed to get it into the back of the net. And then after that it was Bamba just before half time who managed to give Cardiff City the lead. Really, it is the worst time to concede a goal just before half time because it is such a deflating thing, and I do think that that had a bit of an effect on how the second half of this game went actually. You know, if QPR were to go into half time with this one being 1-1, the second half is different in the way they set up for it, but the way the second half did go, Cardiff pretty much controlled it. You know, they were already 2-1 up, and they continued their great start to the season. So what I want to know from you guys is, come the end of the season, where do you think Cardiff will finish? So from one team with a flying start to the season to another, we then have Ipswich Town who came up against Fulham, and to my surprise really, Ipswich actually have recorded their first loss of the season with a 2-0 home defeat at the hands of Fulham. And was this one deserved for Fulham? Absolutely. Ipswich, from what we've seen from them so far this season, in this game here today, were really off the pace actually, which really did surprise me really. But fair play to Fulham. It was, I gotta give them a lot of plaudits for this one, because I think it's fair to say that so far this season, the performances I've seen from Fulham, they have been very good. I think the football they've been playing has been good. They've not had that final quality that allows you to get the victory. In this game, they completely had that. They dominated it from pretty much the first minute till the last, and honestly, it could have been more than 2-0 if they did finish some of their other chances. And Fulham were absolutely terrific in this one. It was Cabano who gave them another lead after just 35 minutes, and then Fonte got a goal on the 51st minute, an excellent finish into the roof of the net. So this one, Ipswich were quite far off the pace, and Fulham definitely shows they're in the race for the playoffs this year. Then for our next game we then had Middlesbrough, who came up against my club, Preston North End. And for this one, it did actually finish as a goalless draw in the end, finishing 0-0. And as a Preston fan, I was pretty happy, you know, with the draw. I think that's not a bad result going away to Middlesbrough, you know, expected to be up at the top of the table come the end of the season. But honestly, if either side could have won this one, it was going to be Preston. Looking at the chances that Preston actually had in this game, I was quite disappointed we didn't go ahead and grab all 3 points. Middlesbrough, I was quite surprised really by how off the pace they were in this one. Obviously, they were coming off the back of that defeat they had last time out away to Nottingham Forest, so I wasn't expecting them to be 100%, but even so, they weren't brilliant considering they were the home side. And if it wasn't for Darren Randolph pulling off some big saves in this one, Preston would have gone ahead and won the game. And under Alex Neil, we've managed to keep 4 clean sheets out of the opening 5 games we've had so far, so I don't know what's happening. I thought at the start of the season our defence would be absolutely all over the shop, but Alex Neil seems to have found the perfect formula, and things looking good for Preston at the moment. So talking about good defences, we then have to talk about some pretty bad defences. Our next fixture then featured Millwall, who absolutely obliterated Norwich City by 4-0. And one thing I must say straight off the bat is don't let the possession stats for Norwich delude you for this game. Were Norwich the better side in this game and just got a bit unlucky? No, absolutely not. Probably one of the worst performances we've seen so far in the Championship, actually. Norwich's defending for each goal that they conceded in this one was just absolutely, it was just horrific. It was cringeworthy to watch at times. It was like Sunday League defending. I couldn't believe how bad the goals that Norwich actually conceded were, but I'm not taking anything away from Millwall in this one. They fully deserved the victory, and in every department of this game, Millwall were by far the better team. They were working harder than Norwich were. Off the ball, they were happy to let Norwich have the ball, you know. One thing that frustrates me about teams like this, it was sort of like what Reading were doing a little bit last season, although they did get it to work for their advantage. Norwich were holding the ball, but not penetrating Millwall at all. They were just playing it around the back, and things like that, you're just not going to get anywhere with it. And Millwall's direct style of play, Norwich could not deal with, and fair play to Millwall, definitely contender for result of the weekend. And it seems to be that this weekend in the Championship, bad defending just seems to be a common theme really. So our next game then featured Sheffield United, who came up against Derby County, and Derby in this one, nothing seemed to be going right for Derby in this one. After just 4 minutes, Derby gifted the lead to Sheffield United after a really bad pass from the Derby goalkeeper, Scott Carson. He gave the ball literally straight to Billy Sharp, and he was always going to go ahead and finish that chance. Sheffield United at home this season have looked very strong. I think that's fair to say. I think at home this season, they will be a bit of a force. I think that's fair to say. But and then the second goal coming in the 39th minute from a Johnny Russell own goal. I'm not even going to lie, Johnny Russell's own goal is a contender for goal of the weekend because it was a fantastic finish. He put it into the bottom corner, and it was just ridiculous. He sort of seemed to go for a tackle, but in the end just seemed to absolutely blast it past Carlson into the back of the net, and Derby were very poor in this one. And they did get a goal back with Brighton in the 91st minute, but then Sheffield United's third goal actually came from Derby piling people forward at the end of the game. I think Carlson had gone up, he was in their own box. Sheffield United managed to break, and Billy Sharp wrapped up the scoring. So how many goals, Sheffield United fans, do you think Billy Sharp will score this season? Let me know down below. And Derby fans, are you a little bit worried about the season to come? And then our last fixture to go ahead and talk over was that of Nottingham Forest, who came up against Leeds United, and in the end it was Leeds who managed to leave with the 2-0 victory. And this one for Leeds, it was a tremendous performance for them. I did think that they were, throughout the majority of the game really, they were the better side in this one. It was Kemar Roofe who managed to give Leeds the lead after just 24 minutes, and Roofe, he's a player I'm very excited to see more of this season. We've already seen him grab a hat-trick in the League Cup the other day, but in terms of his Championship form, now that Chris Wood has gone, I think this guy could actually step up. I think playing off people, his pace going forward, really could be devastating for teams this season. And in the second half, Nottingham Forest looked to attack a little bit more. They had quite a bit of the ball, however couldn't really seem to carve out many clear-cut chances, and the Leeds defence actually played very well in this one. I think that's fair to say. But then in the 87th minute, it was Alioski who wrapped up the game, so things are looking up for Leeds at the moment. They're unbeaten in the Championship, and since selling Sheff Wed for 15 million, they've definitely got money to spend. So there were all the matches that did take place in the Championship this weekend. So looking over at the league table as we do approach an international break now, that is how the league table is currently looking. So it's not looking great at the moment for Bolton, Brentford and Norwich, who are currently all sat in the relegation zone. But in terms of top of the table, Cardiff, what an unbelievable start it has been for the season for them. They're top of the table with a maximum 15 points. So in terms of my result of the weekend, I'm going to go and give it to Millwall for their thrashing of Norwich City by 4-0. Overall, them going forward was so direct and Norwich could not cope with them defensively. So there are a couple others I could give it to. Barnsley definitely a contender for result of the weekend, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to Millwall. And then for my goal of the weekend, I'm going to go ahead and give it to Gary Hooper for his very cheeky goal he scored against Burton Albion. Once again, there are quite a few others I could give this to. Onama's another contender for that one. The only reason I'm not giving it to Onama is because his goal did take a pretty big deflection. So I'm going to give my goal of the weekend to Gary Hooper. So that will wrap it up for this video, guys. So thank you so much for watching. So if you have enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. As well as that, make sure you do subscribe for regular Championship content and leave a comment in the comments down below as to what you thought of your team's performance this weekend. But apart from that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.